This is the Honda E:HRV HTTP:/tilde open quotes asterisk close quotes comma 8,1 L, or Harvey for short. Sexy name. And it's the long-awaited and somewhat overdue update to Honda's baby SUV. In just about every way, the new HRV is a world away from the car it replaces. It follows the new design language that we've seen in the latest Civic, and I think it actually works better here than it does there. The new front end design of this car looks really fresh and modern, with sleek front headlights here and a body colour matched grille, which is a really rare thing to see. Normally front grills are just black, grey or chrome, but this one in red looks really good. Now, Honda's marketing for this car does kind of indicate that there could be a glowing blue light behind here, which would look awesome. Unfortunately, that's not how it is in real life, but we do get a cool blue outline here on the Honda emblem and some nice slimline fog lights down the bottom there. The 18-inch wheels are pretty much standard Honda affairs, with a bit of piano black on them to highlight the chrome, and there's more piano black around the wheel arches here. Not normally a fan of that, but here it actually does look pretty good. But if you were to take this car off-road, not that you would because it's only two-wheel drive, these would probably get a bit scratched up. But you can see in profile here just how different this car looks to last year's model. I think the rear though is where this car actually looks its best, with these LED light clusters that actually have a touch of Audi about them, and this long LED strip that spans the width of the car. It looks really good. Behind the powered tailgate, we've got a smallish size boot, only 304 litres, which you can expand to about 1,000 with the rear seats down. That's quite a bit smaller than the model this car replaces, which you could almost put a small two-seater sofa in. Under the floor, we get a little bit of additional storage space under there, but no spare tyre, although there is a tyre repair kit. Where Toyota might have popularised the hybrid drivetrain, here Honda have perfected it with a 1.5 litre four-cylinder petrol engine that is assisted by two electric motors. One works as a generator to charge the battery, and the other to propel the car with the petrol motor. So when you start the car, especially first thing in the morning, the generator will fire up to charge the battery while the petrol motor drives the car. It's almost like a diesel-electric train in that way. When you're accelerating off at the lights, or decelerating, or just doing a bit of low-speed manoeuvring, the electric motors take care of everything. But when it's under load, both engines kick in to propel you along. And there's a good amount of power too, 93 kilowatts in fact, and 253 newton meters of torque, which is all you need for around town without being sluggish. The interior is where Honda have really gone to town and updated the look of this car. It looks so much better than the dated interior of last year's HRV, and especially compared to competitors like the Hyundai Kona, this looks and feels quite luxe, with a lot less hard scratchy plastics, some nice soft touch materials, and a bit of piano black just to accentuate the angles. One slight letdown is the size of the center console screen. It's just 9 inches, and it's more of a 4x3 sort of layout rather than the big wide screens that we get in some of this car's Korean competitors. But it is still much better than the one in last year's model, which looked like a bit of an aftermarket afterthought. There is wireless Apple CarPlay, but unfortunately Android users will have to use a USB cable. No wireless charging in this car either, but there are two USB-A inputs here on either side of the console. The lower console has a pretty standard gear shifter, which includes a B mode, so you can easily select maximum regenerative braking for the battery. You can also adjust the amount of regenerative braking using the paddle shifters up here on the steering wheel. You can't quite one pedal drive this car. It's very good. It comes close to it, but it won't bring you to a full stop. You'll still need to use the foot brake for that. Drive mode controls, so you can select Eco, Sport or Normal. Hill descent control, again though I don't know why you'd be taking this front wheel drive car off-road, but the option's there nonetheless. Smallish center console bin with a soft lid on top. The instrument cluster is another spot where Honda could have done something really cool and interesting, and they just haven't. It's like they've gone and ripped the instrument cluster out of the Nissan Leaf and put it in here, because I don't know why in the 22nd year of the 21st century we're still relying on steam age technology to tell us how fast we're going. Yes, there is an analog dial in here for your speedo, which personally I don't even look at because there's a digital speedo right next to it, but it annoys me. Come on Honda, you've given us half a digital screen, why not a full one? You did it in last year's model, why have you dropped it now? The LED screen does allow you to cycle through various bits of car information. You can see how energy is being used throughout the vehicle, whether you're being powered by the electric motor or the petrol motor, or how much charge is going to the battery. You can also use turn-by-turn navigation from the nav system, and that also works well with Apple CarPlay, and there's also basic trip computer information in there too. The steering wheel is a good size, has a nice feel to it with a bit of stitching. There's controls for the sound system and the cruise control, plus this car also has a heated steering wheel, the button for that just over here on the right hand side, and the paddles at the back to control the amount of regenerative braking. The seating position's actually really good, great visibility out the front, you can see right to the front of the bonnet, a good size rear vision mirror so I can see quite clearly out the back. The wing mirrors are huge and you get a lot of really good visibility from them. One thing that is missing though is the blind spot camera in the left-hand mirror. What used to happen was if you indicated left, you would see the image from that camera here on the center console screen so you could see if anyone was in your blind spot or not. Now that's missing from this car. I don't know whether Honda have moved on from that in all their cars, but it's not here. Hyundai have started including it in their cars, but it is a bit of a shame that they don't have it here in the new HRV. Then we come to the seats, which are a little bit of a disappointment in a car at this price point. They're not electric at all, there is only manual adjustment, and they're also not leather. I mean, they are leather accented, but I don't think this is the real thing. They're cloth, they're heated, but they're not ventilated, and they're just not terribly comfortable for somebody with legs as long as mine. I just feel like I'm gonna fall out of the seat, especially when we're going downhill. And the back seat of the HRV, once I move the headrest up, is actually pretty comfortable. A little bit tight on headroom though. I'm hitting the top there, that's because of the low ceiling, but it's not too bad. It's not a total deal breaker. But behind my own seating position, and I'm 190 centimeters tall, I've got a lot of room. I'm not touching the seat in front. This is really good. A couple of air vents back here, 2 more USBs to keep the kids happy, but you can only have 2 children back here because this car is only a 4-seater. There is no center seat, but we do get an armrest with 2 cup holders. So only being a 4-seater, that might prove to be a bit of a deal breaker for some families. You could, I think, quite comfortably fit 3 people back here, but Honda have decided not to go down that path. Apparently that comes down to an Australian design rule that they've decided not to comply with. So there are only 2 people here in the back. So right now, driving along slowly through a car park, we're running purely on electric power. And it is really quiet. It is just like driving any other EV. But, and you probably didn't hear it, because I know I didn't, the petrol engine just kicked in and took over. And it is really quiet. And in fact, right now, both engines are working together to propel us forward. I do have to wonder though, about extra wear and tear on a petrol engine, just from being started and stopped all the time. I mean, most petrol engines probably get turned on and off maybe a few times a day at most. This one can be turned on and off a few times a minute, and surely that can't be a good thing in the long run. And right now that I've taken my foot off the accelerator, it's now directing that engine braking power back into the battery. But under load, the petrol engine does get a little bit noisy. It's not the most refined. It's not lacking in power, and it doesn't feel like it's working at the upper limit of its ability, but it is noisy. The ride though is very comfortable, very smooth. The suspension tune feels great for around the city, but this car really doesn't have any off-road aspirations. Now, I do have to admit, when I first got into this car a week ago, I did not like it much at all, and that could partially have something to do with the fact that I'd been driving nothing but BMWs for a month beforehand, so it's not really a fair comparison. But this car has really grown on me, and I think it's actually very good at what it does, and it's well made, and it's really quite pleasant to drive. I mean, acceleration is not earth-shattering, it's not a Tesla, but it's perfectly adequate, it's fine. It does 0 to 100 in about 10 seconds. For suburban driving, you don't really need anything more than that. But it is certainly more engaging to drive than the old HRV. Honda have certainly improved with that. But it's cars like this that show that Japanese manufacturers, especially Honda and Mazda, really do care about driving dynamics. They make mass market cars that are engaging and fun to drive. I forgot to mention the climate controls before. They're really nicely laid out and they look good, but it's interesting. I've got it set on 24 degrees at the moment. It is definitely not 24 degrees in here, and it's not a particularly warm day, but my hand is being blasted by cold air over here on the right-hand side. And in my own Honda, I've had issues with the air conditioning just not doing quite what it says on the label. I don't know if that's a Honda thing, but Seems like something they might need to work on. I don't know if it's the red grille or what, but this car actually got a fair bit of attention while I was filming it today. I was surprised. I honestly didn't think people would look twice at it, but it's proving itself to be a bit of a turn-back car. You know, a car that looks good enough to turn back and look at it after you've parked it. I had no less than 4 people come up and talk to me, and that's unusual. Although there was one guy who raised his middle finger to me in traffic when I dared toot him for pulling out right in front of me without warning. He didn't seem to like this car that much. While I think the Toyota CHR is perhaps a more striking car to look at, it is getting a little bit long in the tooth, and the HRV just looks and feels a bit more contemporary. If you're thinking of going electric and you're not ready to commit, or maybe you live in an older apartment building like I do and you don't have anywhere to charge, then a hybrid can be a very good stepping stone for you. But Honda's non-negotiable $45,000 price is a lot of money to pay for a subcompact SUV that's front-wheel drive only, has no leather seats, no power adjustable seats, there are only 4 seats, and there's no wireless phone charging. So I think until Honda can solve a few of those issues, they might struggle to sell many of these top-spec HRVs.